was placed under a tree, away to the sides and in the shadows. His head was throbbing, and a large lump confirmed it. Maybe he had hit his head on some branches as they carried him there, as he had no memory of it. He noticed the first creature he saw sat beside a female who was breastfeeding a young, her sagging breasts also very similar to indigenous tribal women, and a sign of the many children she probably had reared. Even sat down, the first creature was massive, not that the female was small. He estimated from the overlying branches that the first creature must have been well over 8 feet. The sinister-looking creature was jumping around, as if he was trying to gee up what looked like younger creatures, teenagers perhaps. Their communication was too fast for the man to understand, but he was certain they had a language of some sort. Allied to the language, the creatures would use grunting sounds intermittently, not unlike gorillas. Escape would be futile, he thought, and seeing how insanely fast the creatures moved and how high they could leap as they danced, he wouldn't get far. As if sensing his thoughts, the sinister one turned and looked in his direction before letting out a huge roar that shook the insides of the man. The sinister-looking creature jumped around like someone who couldn't contain themselves with excitement. With another grunt, 2 smaller creatures were on him in an instant and dragged him over in front of the creatures. It was then when the man began to piece together just what their plans were for him. As starting with the sinister-looking creature, they would snap large branches in front of the man as if to convey their intentions. The first creature looked at the man, his now worried eyes only reinforcing what the man was thinking his fate would be. A youngster was then pushed out in front of him, the sinister-looking creature imploring him to break a branch in front of the man. He duly did, and the sinister-looking creature dropped to his knees and ran his giant fingers over the ground. He then looked at the man, gleaming with hatred as he pointed to the younger creature and made the action of the branch breaking. This is what he was geeing up the youngsters for, the man thought. He was to be part of some rite of passage ritual for the young creature, with him being the bait. The sinister-looking creature grabbed the man and flung him through the air. As the man picked himself up, the creature beckoned for him to run. The man looked at the first creature, but he looked away. Just as he was about to get to his feet, a roar of such ferocity got everyone's attention. All the creatures looked in the roar's direction, and even the sinister-looking creature's demeanor changed. Then appeared another creature, taller than the first creature and truly massive. His grey hair suggested to the man that this creature was the elder of the tribe. The sinister-looking creature tried to get his attention, but he was disciplined by the merest of grunts. The old creature knelt, leaning forward to bring his face close to the man's. This face was so human, the man thought. The old creature sniffed the man and let out a softer grunt. An older female arrived, and she began to sniff the man also. Both of the creatures looked at each other as if they were in agreement. The older male creature began to walk away. The old female creature put her hand on the man's bump on his head. A younger female came with a leaf-like vessel filled with liquid. They handed it to the man, getting impatient as he didn't immediately drink it. He drank it all, coconut water and something else, he thought. He began to feel better. The 2 younger creatures just stood over him, looking at each other as if unsure what to do. Then the older female, who had sat a distance away, raised her arm, and the 2 creatures sprung into action. As he was being dragged past the elder female towards the forest, she let out another grunt, different to the previous, and of seemingly annoyance. One of the creatures lifted the man over his shoulders, his head facing forwards. He let out a grunt. The elder female replied, and he started running. To the man, the pace the creature was running at made it seem like they were gliding through the forest. The other young creature was just in front, and what the man could make out from the sounds is that he was clearing the way. What seemed to be minutes having elapsed, the speed began to reduce, and they came to a halt. The man was kept slung over the creature's shoulder as he could hear some creatures communicating a short distance away. The creature grunted and began to move, albeit at a walking pace, and still appeared fast to the man. He was brought inside a teepee-like structure and was gently placed on the ground. Well, gently as far as these creatures go. He looked around, unable to make out much detail due to the darkness. Flickers of the green glow could be seen through the leaf-like entrance. A creature stepped inside. Another massive one, he thought, as these creatures go. The creature appeared to put his hand on his chest and then raised it to the roof of the teepee-like structure. The green glow instantly covered the now visible leaf-covered roof. The man could see now it was the elder male, and there was a shadow outside the entrance, indicating another creature just outside. The elder creature looked at the man, an expressionless look on his face. He then turned his head to the side and softly grunted. The other creature entered and stood behind the elder, his massive frame and height blocking it from view. With another soft growl, the creature stepped out from behind the elder male. It was a female. The man instantly thought of how beautiful she appeared. A human face, her body not unlike tall female basketball and netball players. She appeared young, maybe late teens, he thought. He quickly turned his gaze from her as she growled in his direction. The two creatures conversed in their fast language. Although loud and appearing to be arguing amongst each other, it was the female who seemed most agitated, with the elder male appearing to be the mediator. The room went quiet. They had come to an agreement, it seemed. The elder male let out a grunt, followed by a louder one. The man looked at him, his intuition telling him that the first grunt was for him. With the man now facing the creatures, the young female went and laid on the floor. The elder male approached the man and stood in front of him. He turned his head to the direction of the female, while grunting at the same time. The man was confused, but not wanting to anger the huge male. He lifted his eyebrows to try and convey his confusion. The elder male continued grunting, his anger increasing with each one. The female then roared, followed by a grunt. The elder male's expression changed and he left the room. To the man it was like a teenage daughter shouting at her dad to leave her room. Maybe they are related, he thought, going by their human-like faces. The female got up and forcibly pulled the man to his feet. She led him to the middle of the room, and facing her she returned to lying on the floor. Is this what they require of me? The man thought. She leaned up and pulled him into her. Easing her hold as she sensed his pain from her arms gripping him, she opened her legs. She snarled as he looked into her large brown eyes, and he quickly looked to the side. Once finished, she flung him away from her. He watched as she placed both her hands on her belly. Within seconds, she let out a painful cry and rose to her feet. She looked angry as she went to the side and picked up what looked like flower petals. She dipped them in a liquid and mushed them together before heading for the man. She painfully forced his mouth open to lodge the mushed flower petals inside. She growled to hasten him to swallow and returned to lying on the floor. Within seconds, it was obvious to the man just what the effects of these flower petals were. Like a forest Viagra, she growled at him to return to her. The man lost count as this act repeated itself for what seemed like hours, and with the female's sad cries and subsequent anger increasing throughout. He would even ingest the flower petals himself, saving him from the tightening grip of the ever more angry female. Having gone past his limits of exhaustion, he expected the same thing to repeat itself when the female once more placed her hands on her belly. This time she stayed longer, with now an expressionless look on her face. Was it too much for her to take? Would she now explode in anger, he thought, after another failure? A deafening sound then filled the air as the female erupted in a cacophony of high-pitched yelps, followed by what sounded like other creatures joining in outside. She quickly got up and rushed outside, not once looking at the man. These yelps continued outside for what seemed the longest time. The man was left alone, shattered after his exertions, but too afraid to close his eyes, as he feared what was next. The outside noises changed, and those familiar argument-like tones that the elder male and young female had exhibited could be heard outside, but what now appeared to be countless creatures. The man sensed he was the source of this argument. Would he be kept inside this room, or would he be the bait for the rite of passage ritual? The noise stopped, and he could hear the footsteps approaching. He stared at the ground, sensing there were two creatures inside with him now. He waited for a growl to lift his head, but it never came. Then he felt the softest of touches as a finger brushed his shoulder. He looked up. He knew those caring eyes. It was the original creature. The man could see in his eyes that maybe things were going to be okay. The creature gently lifted him over his shoulder, and they set off with another creature in front, just like before. The forest lit up with that green glow as they glided through it. Maybe it is only the older creatures that can do this, he thought, but he was too tired for thinking, and he drifted off. He woke up sitting in the driver's seat of his truck. The trees were gone from the logging road. On the passenger seat there were a collection of different fruits, and on the floor a number of small animal carcasses just like those he hunted. He quickly looked around, but there were no creatures in sight, but he felt calm, as that feeling of dread was not there. He never entered the forest again after that day. Wowza, folks, is that a bloody Bigfoot encounter or what? Fantastic. There's so many things that will resonate with people who are into this subject. Fantastic. I couldn't believe it when I read it, and then, you know, because when it was fully translated to English I understood it more. Really fantastic encounter, and I hope you all enjoyed it. And anyone looking to get into this subject, I would implore you to look at the Patterson-Gimlin video, things like the Russian Zana, which was a true story, a Russian wild woman that she was captured in the wild by a rich man in a village, and they used to get her, they'd get her drunk, and the men of the village would have their way with her. I think she had children, and that's a true story. That's a true story, and there's some good Bigfoot shows out there. I'll try and find some more of these encounters in Brazil, because this one was just fascinating. As you can see here, the sun is going down, folks, so beautiful day. But I hope you really enjoyed this encounter story, and if you like it, give a like to the video and subscribe. And if you like the way I told the story, I'll try find more and tell them like this. All right, folks. All right. See you later.